We're glad Nick allowed us to have this wonderful opportunity to help with PitchCon. And as you know, it's on the bottom of the screen there, pitcherlist.com/PitchCon to donate to the ALS fundraiser. For those new to Bubba and the Bloom, we like to do a lot of Bloom boards. We like to have a lot of fun and amongst many, many other things. And lately, Ryan, we have finished recapping the hitting positions as a preview, I guess. So what is the idea with the Bloom boards today?
Yeah, so the last few, really the last, 2, 3, 4 weeks, all of January has been position previews for hitters. So apologies to Nick in advance. This is not a pitcher-centric show, but I
What?
hope he obliges. Yeah, there we go. Not one pitcher. Well, we'll see. We always go off trail, so we probably will mention a pitcher at some point, so don't worry. But what we've been doing is using Bloom boards, which for those not aware, are just kind of graphic visual representations, lists of players and things like that, to look at each position by ADP and what their projections are, to kind of take a look at each position and see where the values are, where the pockets are, where you might want to draft, where you don't want to draft, all that sort of thing. And so what we figured we would do today is kind of a recap of all that, kind of like a hitter roadmap episode, where if you're going through and trying to evaluate where you want to target each position in a draft right now, where to do that by position. And it's easy to kind of say, I know we fall into the trap sometimes. Oh, we need to get a catcher in the first 5 rounds. We need to get 2 outfielders in the first 5 rounds. We need to get, don't listen, Nick, a starting pitcher in the first 5 rounds. We try and be realistic with it, but like, hey, we have to, we can't do all of that. So where can we go a little bit later in other positions? And I think these boards help us do that. So
yeah, for cavemen like me, the boards are great because they're color coded, so it meets the eye. It's very nice, and it kind of points you in directions where you can find maybe some pockets to enjoy, and that's kind of what, again, this exercise is going to give us. So we're going to go position by position in the hitting department, because our positional previews for pitching start next week on Bubba and the Bloom. So we'll get you going here, and we will we'll highlight maybe an early target, a late target, and a potential early fade along the lines there to kind of get you going and get you a feel for where we're sitting right now. It is January 31st so a long way to go, and a lot can change obviously at the positions. But Ryan, let's pull up the catcher target here, because of course we start catchers, because catchers are amazing, everybody. So we're going to go right out the gate here. And again, these ADPs are from a little while ago, so things might have shifted recently, but you get the gist of what's going on here. And I'll let you take the floor here first, Ryan. When you look at this board, again, I mentioned the color coding to the listeners out there. Certain things stand out, and that's the beauty of this for like just a quick look thing. Again, it's what Bloom boards are for. They give you something to make you want to dive in deeper potentially on a subject. So when you look at the catcher board here, what stands out to you the most?
all right, yeah, and first off, so we're gonna use this template for every single position. We're just kind of run through every single position. So what we're looking at, just to give a quick lay of the land, what we're looking at is the top 30 at each position, ordered by average draft position, ordered by ADP, right? So there's that ADP column that has that, and then the projections, which are color coded, so you can kind of see where positions are strong in average, power, and speed. The projections are all from Steamer that are available on Fangraphs. So by being able to kind of take this snapshot look at the top 30, you can see at catcher, for example, where you might want to find those cliffs and get in before you jump off. For me, the cliff, and we've talked about this, you're the catcher guy, and we'll talk about this mostly under the context of 2 catcher leagues. But on the left side, Keibert Ruiz is kind of that last one, number 15 catcher going. Overall, I feel like there is if you compare the left side to the right side of this, there is a lot of what we call on the show Oregon Duck green, good on the left side, and then a lot of rare steak red in honor of Bubba's cooking acumen, which is bad, but really rare steak red's fine. But that's where we kind of see that cliff, I think, is after Keibert Ruiz at like pick 200, I think is where you want to try and wrap up not one but 2 catchers, because replacement level at catcher is pretty rough every year.
Yeah, it can get rough, and it's the age old adage: do you take one early? Do you take 2 early? Do you punt catchers? It's always an interesting dichotomy when you're like, that's the beauty of the drafts, putting puzzles together as we go through it. And as this board shows you, you may lean towards at least, one in the top 100 or 200. Like, you kind of want at least something early, but you can wait, because I did say top 200, unlike other positions we'll get to at the same time. So just to kind of keep this train rolling, Ryan, we're going to go throughout each position. 1 through 15's on the left if you're watching on YouTube or on Playback, and 16 through 30 is on the right side. And so we're going to give one target from each side and then one fade in the top 10. So, Ryan, who's one of your top targets? And if you take King William, I'm going to be very angry with you.
No. We'll not take King William. That's yours. I'm gonna go Shea Langoliers. One of the games we kind of play on the show is, can we roster, can we draft similar skills at a later point in the draft? And in our catcher episode, what came up was Shea Langoliers. What's the difference between Cal Raleigh and Shea Langoliers? Outside of maybe some track record for Cal Raleigh. The projections are pretty much the same for both. Shea Langoliers is going pick 125-ish. Cal Raleigh is going pick 80. So I think if you want to get power, you need to have some batting average cushion built up in your 5x5 batting average leagues. But Shea Langoliers, I think, a premier power source that you can wait outside the top 100. And again, I don't see much of a difference between him and Cal Raleigh.
Nope, that's totally fair, and it's a fun comp that we put together recently. So, all aboard that train. To take one a little farther down the board here, Tyler Stevenson has been a major target of mine as a catcher 2 potentially, or if you really punt the position, I don't mind him as a catcher 1. It's one of the few catchers as you go farther down the board, like projections have him hitting 253, but in reality, we've seen him hit much better. He has really good bat to ball skills, and he hits the ball incredibly hard. Shout out to my old co-host Batflip Crazy. He said he's really, really big and hits the ball really, really hard. It's one of the funniest things I heard on one of our shows. And he's just battled injuries of late, but he should play every day. He's going to hit in the middle of the order. They'll DH him. They'll play him at first once in a while as well. He's got 20-plus home run upside and maybe gets you 160 to 180 runs RBIs combined. So if you're waiting at the position, Tyler Stevenson is a target of mine. All right, 16 through 30, Ryan. This is where things get more rare steak red for you. So what stands out?
Not much. Not much. Again, you look at these projections, they're red for all these. Pretty much all these catchers are projected for maybe 10 home runs with bad batting average. And this is why we say you want to prioritize that top 200 and get your catcher position locked up. I will go with Danny Jansen at pick 330. There is major health risk. Danny Jansen hasn't been able to make it really through a full season healthy in quite some time. So there is some risk that you're going to have to kind of find a replacement via FAB. But Danny Jansen, on a per plate appearance basis, is a really good hitter. I think the Tampa Bay lineup's going to be awesome this year, not just because of the park. That lineup is pretty deep, and the price is really good at 330. You're basically in the end game catcher at this point. So, and if you're in 12-team leagues, like Danny Jansen is like the 25th catcher off the board. So like that is a replacement level pick. And I think Danny Jansen, while he's healthy, can be quite productive for you.
Yep. Big fan of that. Is while healthy, take it while you can and go from there. For me, it's Ivan Herrera. This is a guy that I was pounding the drum for last year as a catcher 3 in your draft and hold format. It's not a bad best ball pick later on as well. With the rumblings of Wilson Contreras moving primarily to first base, he might catch from time to time, but he seems to be primarily first base and catcher. I'm going Ivan Herrera as he is one of the better offensive talents in this entire catching pool. Projections don't know what to do with them because we don't have a big sample to do with projections. But we saw 5 homers, we saw 5 steals last year with an elite batting average at the catcher's position, albeit a small sample. The skills do check out with Ivan Herrera. The biggest caveat, and this is why he is going at 240-ish area, is Pedro Pages is there, and the Cardinals do like defense. That's one thing we know. If they choose to go offense, Ivan Herrera should run away with this and be a steal at this ADP. But there is that little birdie, in your ear telling you that Pedro Pages maybe takes advantage of this situation. So I like Ivan Herrera. I think he's a very, very solid catcher 2, or even catcher 3. But just know there's a small problem if the Cardinals get goofy with us.
All right, first
All right,
base.
to the
Let's
first
see
base
how we transition here. There it is. All right, perfect.
Well done. So what are we seeing on this board? Because it's another one where rare steak red shows up late and in bunches.
Yeah, so just real quick at first base, this was my takeaway. There's a lot of power at the top. So look at that, like top 10, top 13. A lot of that green for home runs. That's what we typically think of, right? With first base is kind of that like slow power guy, whatever. I think what's interesting about first base a little bit more this season, which is different than years past, you can get stolen bases here. There are pockets of green in the stolen base column. Bryce Harper, Freddie Freeman. If you go early, you can do that. But you can go a little bit later, get a Josh Naylor, Cody Bellinger, Spencer Steer. I don't know if I'd recommend Luis Arias at this point, but you can get some stolen bases at first base. It's not a total zero. That's probably one of the bigger takeaways from first base for me. I also think like I'd love getting one of the top three here. If you're going to go early at first base, I think one of Vlad, Harper, Freddie Freeman, in whatever order you have them. I don't, whatever. I think that works because they're all pretty balanced. And then you kind of go. One thing that stood out to both of us on the show is again that comparison. Like, is there much of a difference just looking at the projections here between Pete Alonso going at pick 57 and Christian Walker? Basically the same steamer projection between those two. And you can even translate that further down in the first base pool. If you take your Christian Walker at 101, look down further at Jake Berger and Tristan Casas. Like, is there that much of a difference between those guys? Like, yes, Pete Alonso is projected to be better than them because he has the track record and the power and that sort of thing. But I think it's well within the kind of range of error for projections. So I think first base, if you don't grab one of those first three, Guerrero, Harper, or Freeman, I think you can kind of wait and fish in the Christian Walker, Josh Naylor, or Jake Berger. I know Bubba Burger is one of our nicknames on the show. I think you can fish in that pool and be pretty successful at first base if you wait a little while.
And one thing I want to clear up for anybody that's new to the Bloom boards here, like if you saw the catcher one, we said, oh, there's the rare stake red on the right, and there's a lot on this one. Also notice the ADPs though. Like on the left side of the catcher ADP, it was already into the 200s. Here we're in 184. You'll see at other positions it changes. So each board is colored by position, not towards the entire pool.
Yeah, so there was a comment. I think Kyle was in there. Yeah, 7 stolen bases on the last catcher slide was green because that's like the best stolen base projection at catcher for that group. So
yeah, this is for each position individually here. Yeah, and it is a top heavy position, but it's also a position we know in the past, and this definitely showcases it. Not a ton in the stolen base department. You still got guys that'll get you 5+, which is good, but it also emphasizes as we move on to the middle infield that, hey, or even outfield, maybe make sure you get your steals elsewhere unless you want to, get risky here. But there's a ton of power again, as usual. Even on the right side of the Bloom board, there's a lot of 20+, 25+ guys that you can mix and match, but you're going to take hits in average and whatnot. So it's a position because there's always a few positions you have to wait on. Back to Ryan's comment at the beginning of, hey, you want to take X amount of this and X amount of this in the first 5 rounds. You can't. So first base, yes, you can get these elite guys early that get you your batting average and tons of power, maybe even more steals than most. Or if you build out your roster in a certain way, there's a very nice pocket when you drop down to the 100 and beyonds, like Ryan mentioned with Walker, Naylor, Pasquantino, and you drop down another 20 picks, and you got the Burgers and the Casas, and then you drop down another 50, and you got Goldie. So there are pockets to still have very quality first basemen, and then it gets dealer's choice at the end, is the way I'll say. Like, we each had arguments of certain guys we liked and certain we didn't, and it's more like plug your nose and pray at that point, but very, very doable as well. All right, Ryan, who is one of your targets 1 through 15 on the left side?
I'm gonna come around a bit, coming off my beer bet loss to you last season on my Paul Goldschmidt versus your Christian Walker. You destroyed me on that one. I'm gonna go Christian Walker at 101 with honorable mention to Josh Naylor at the same price. I think again you can kind of wait till 100 and get your first baseman here. So those are two guys that really stand out to me. Wanted to take Berger, but I assume that's going to be your pick.
Yeah. So I appreciate.
It's almost like we do this together.
I appreciate that. Yes, it's Jake Berger through and through for me. There's been the running joke. I know we use it on our show, and I've seen it mentioned in other social media platforms and whatnot. But Jake Berger, you see this big guy, and you look a lot of big guys at the position that maybe they don't hit for average. That's just a common theme at first base and third base. Jake Berger's hit 250 for 3 straight seasons. 250. He's the Chris Davis of the position right now. Not 247 like Davis, but 250 consistently. Plus, it's a 30 home run bat. We've seen that he's done that in a bad White Sox team, and a bad Marlins team, and a bad ballpark in Miami, which is great. Jake Berger moves to Texas, Arlington, Texas, to a pretty neutral ballpark. Maybe still slights towards the pitching side of things. We have only like a year or two sample of that, so still working on that. But I call it a beer league softball lineup. If you look at the Texas lineup from top to bottom, these are studs. Like you're gonna rock. If you're in a 15-team league, almost every player on Texas is rostered. Like, it's pretty wild in that. And so Berger's run production numbers should be through the roof. 30+ home runs should be in play again with the great batting average. So love me some Berger. Who do you like on the right side, Ryan?
Yeah, just real quick on Berger. Just take a look at the splits, second half, first half, second half with Berger. Once he was finally healthy after that oblique injury, I think you'll be impressed by what a healthy Jake Berger did at the end of last season. I do not like the right side of this screen
Nope.
at all. And I think that for me, that's valuable to know because I am now prioritizing getting a first baseman in those first 100, 120 picks. If I had to pick someone here, I'll go Ryan Mountcastle. I like the skills. I love the lineup. The ballpark's going to be a little bit easier to hit in with left field being moved in. So I'll go Mountcastle at a cheap price. But again, not super excited about really. And like there's a lot of low ceilings, I think, on the right side of the screen, which is first base 15 through 30. But Mountcastle would be my guy if I just need someone to kind of fit in a corner infield spot.
Yeah, I would prefer these to be corner infields. I would not like to leave my draft as this as my starting first baseman. I have done that recently, and I beat Bubba OC, not by choice, but in a 12, at least I can kind of hopefully make
Man,
things
you
work
did? Because
there.
you didn't take a picture. You didn't take a picture in the first, what, 9, 10 rounds of that
I took
draft?
a closer in like round 4 or 5, and then my first starting pitcher was round 9. Correct. Yes.
All right.
So
See, we got our starting pitcher shout out
and
here.
it's a loaded pitching staff. So kudos to Nick Pollock. You can't wait on starting pitching, folks. You really can. Contrary to the beliefs of so many people out there.
Loaded.
But yes, when you're looking at the right side of the board here, like I said earlier, it's dealer's choice. It's plug your nose and pray. If you just kind of want a safety net, it's on a bad baseball team, but Andrew Vaughn, he's just going to consistently hit 250 to 255 probably. He's going to hit you 20 to 25 home runs, and just the run production is going to stink because of the team he's on. And I know we're supposed to just pick one, but I'm just going to throw like a Vaughn. Maybe Nathaniel Lowe gets better steals because Washington runs a ton, and he's going to hit in the middle of a very up-and-coming Washington lineup. It's just a mixed bag there, but I've been going to a lot of Vaughn just for the safety next. There's so much volatility on this right side.
Also, take a look at, again, similar exercise. Compare Andrew Vaughn's projection versus Paul Goldschmidt 100 picks later. It's basically the same exact thing with Goldschmidt getting 8 steals, and I would probably take the under on Old Schmidt doing that. So, yeah, I get Andrew Vaughn.
All righty. Before we, all right, real quick, who's your fade in the top 10?
I'll bend the rules. Tristan Casas at 13. He's my fade.
Yeah, you've been on that. And then me, it's just been a thing of mine for years. It's backfired on me once, and maybe it won't with the short porch this year, but I'm going to keep fading Cody Bellinger. The bat to ball skills are just atrocious for a potential quote unquote power hitter. Now, the short porch, like I said, could help, but I'm out. I'm all out on Cody Bellinger on that one. All right, before we hit to second base, just want to remind everybody this is PitchCon, even though you might be listening to a Bubba and the Bloom podcast. And PitchCon is an amazing, amazing thing because they're raising a ton of money for ALS1. 100% of the donations go to ALS1. So please go support a great cause over here that PitchCon is running through Nick Pollock and Pitcher List and all the great people there. And there's a ton of great prizes. And for those that may not know, we are going to be giving away a free year of our Patreon. So go check that out as a part of it. So as you donate money, you get basically raffle tickets and you could win some awesome prizes, a ton of prizes. And so go support a great cause at PitchCon that supports ALS1. Go to pitcherlist.com/PitchCon to donate. All right, Ryan, let's hit second base up here. And what are we seeing when we check out this awesome board?
All right, second base. A couple things stand out to me. First, look at that ADP column on the top left. There's Ketel Marte going 30th overall. That's the only second baseman going in the top 60 in drafts right now. So there is like no elite top tier, depending on what you think about Ketel Marte at second base. That kind of tips me off to say, hey, maybe this is somewhere I'm going to wait and at second base and prioritize other positions early in the draft. The thing that stands out to me at second base, look at the home run column, look at the power projections, the top like 6. It's all pretty much mid-20s, which is pretty good. That completely flips on its head once you go further down, like 7 through 15 at second base, where you are no longer getting really any power, but there is a ton of speed available. You've got Bryce Terrain projected 35. The mascot of the Bubba and the Bloom podcast, Luis Rengifo at 23 projected steals. Andres Jimenez, 26. Bryson Stott, 27. Nico Herner, 27. Off-brand mascot. If you know, you know. Michael Garcia, 29 stolen bases. So this is where not only can you wait at the position, but I think this is also, if you're in 5x5 leagues, this is your opportunity to get some speed with batting average that won't kill you. So look at that batting average column for the speedsters here. It's all kind of white, maybe some green in there mixed in. Yes, it's going to hurt you in power, but you can address that in other positions early. So for me at second base, I'm typically going in that ADP 140 to 200 type of group, and this is where I'm targeting stolen bases that aren't going to kill me in batting average and runs. So
Yeah, when we did this show, it really opened my eyes of, like I kind of said when we talked first base and everything, you're gonna need to not punt a position, but wait on a position somewhere.
right.
And after we just said at first base, like, hey, look at steals are almost non-existent at this position. And when we get to third base, going to be very similar. Hate to, burst the bubble on that one. So this does open up a whole avenue of things. That's why we're kind of doing this recap of hitting to maybe give people an idea of how you might want to, navigate your draft. Because yes, when you're drafting and you get to like round 4 or 5 and you see like your Altuve's and your Ozzy Albies and whatnot, you're like, okay, these are really good, solid floors. Like, let's do it. But then you're also passing up on maybe an SP1, or you're passing up on a closer one, depending on your format, or a stud outfielder to give you an outfielder too, because we'll talk about that. That gets murky eventually too. Like, there's a lot of those scenarios that these are roadmaps. There's some very, very smart players. I know Ryan likes to kind of try to script out his first few rounds. A lot of smart people do that. And being able to flat out go, hey, these guys from like ADP 150 on, I can still get a second baseman I can live with, and that's fine. I will say when we get to shortstop, I prefer to have my shortstop as my middle infielder, not my second baseman. So just because there's a lot of usable second baseman 150 on, I don't really want two of them if I don't have to. You can live with it though, is the good part, because this is where you can get a ton of speed with 10 plus homers and a decent batting average, as you mentioned, Ryan. All right, who's one of your targets 1 through 15 on the left side?
So just along that lines of kind of waiting, getting at speedster here, I'm going to go, even if you may disagree, my friend, I'm going to go Andres Jimenez. I think a couple years in a row of 250 plus batting average, 30 plus stolen bases is a pretty sweet floor. Yes, the power fell back last year, but if that comes back at all, maybe 10 to 15 homers. It's not a zero at home runs for Andres Jimenez. I think the playing time with the glove is super safe, even though he struggles a little bit against lefties. But Andres Jimenez, again, is just kind of that prototypical speed guy who's not really hurting you elsewhere, and someone at a 174 ADP, you can get that, and the price is very palatable. So Andres Jimenez is ending up on a lot of Bloom squads so far in 2025.
Well, let's just say when you streamed your draft to the Patreon crew, I was against the Andres Jimenez pick because of who you passed up and what your team needed.
I know.
I'm Team Andres. There's a lot of people that aren't, especially north of the border, that were not happy with that trade when it took place. But I have zero problem with them based on the ADP, based on the everything you mentioned. I've rostered him many times, and I don't mind it at all. I don't have a ton this year, ironically, because of other pockets I probably attack at second base. But still, yeah, no, zero problem with Jimenez, especially that ADP of 174. I had a million times take him over Bryson Stott. We've talked about that. Nico Horner and his injury. So Jimenez is, if you wait, I'd say basically 175 and beyond. I think you've done pretty well with some upside there for sure. For me, now again, I usually wait at the position, but if I have gone early at second base, it's been for Luis Garcia of the Washington Nationals. Ryan and I talk about it a ton on our shows, and I even had Lauren Auerbach on recently to preview the Nationals. She's on board. This Nationals team is super young. I actually kept writing down ages. Most of them are like 26 and younger. There's like two players in their 30s, like Josh Bell and Carlos Santana or something. Or no, Santana's not even there. They only have like two guys in their 30s. This offense is getting better and better. It's going to be very, very good. We saw Garcia, who throughout the minors had a very solid batting average pedigree. The power and speed was like, hey, when's it going to come? When's it going to come? And it burst onto the scene last year. Now that could be a one-hit wonder in the power stuff. Let's see if it sticks type thing. But we saw a guy that literally has 2020 upside, if not better. Like there's maybe more room to grow being so young. Really solid batting average skills. Going to score a ton of runs. He was actually hitting more in the middle of the order this past year than towards the top, so maybe more run production as well. If you got Nathaniel Lowe there now, really good OBP guy, could get on base, make that magic happen. So I love Luis Garcia. People are concerned about the Ahmed Rosario thing. I was never concerned. He's not going to be there to block Garcia. Garcia does struggle versus lefties. He's also young and has like less than like 250 career plate appearances versus lefties. You can't make an assumption off of that. So big fan of Luis Garcia. If I'm going early at second base, it's with the Nationals second baseman.
And also, for what it's worth, Lauren Auerbach on your Nationals preview agreed that Ahmed Rosario is not a threat to Luis Garcia's playing time. So that's another kind of tip in the cap there. So, all right, can I steal the mascot?
Go for
Can I
it. The new
steal the
mascot,
mascot?
the 2025 Bubba and the Boom mascot is all yours.
All right. So a quick peek behind the curtain of the show. We call these guys the mascots. Willie Castro, Slick Willie Castro, as we like to call him on the show, is my pick at ADP 246. We call these guys the mascot because they're multi-position and they seemingly show up on every position preview episode that we did. So Willie Castro, we talked about, I think 4 times in a row on our show at second, third, outfield, shortstop. So that's where that whole mascot thing comes from. Last year it was Luis Rengifo. This year it's Slick Willie Castro. I just think the price is really good. And in draft and holds, and this is probably more of a draft and hold pick than like a shallow or fab league. I just think that 4 category or 4 position eligibility is so huge. I think Willie Castro's playing time is safe on the Minnesota Twins. And I don't think he hurts you really in any category. Maybe batting average, but again, we're talking a 250 ADP. This is someone who has some pretty good stolen base upside, non-zero power, and again, a batting average that won't kill you. And I think that's good to get around 250. So Slick Willie is the guy.
And the recent news coming out of Minnesota, he could even platoon at first base to add that eligibility.
We might go for the 5. We might go for the 5.
As they said in the Discord when that news dropped, it could be first ballot Bubba and the Bloom Hall of Famer Willie Castro. With time, we're done with him. That's like the old Jose Akendo for those that want to go way back in the machine for the Cardinals. Played all 9 positions in 9 innings once. Willie's going for that crown because I don't think we'll ever see that again, obviously. All right, for me, this is, like I said, I prefer not to be here. Like I'm living in that like Luis Garcia to 115 to 200 pocket if I can at second base, but you can live back here. And one guy, if you just want, like, I'll say this, I'm high on Colt Keith, but that's not the pick I'm going to mention. The guy I've been targeting a lot down here, and I'm honestly surprised the ADP hasn't gone up more, is Jonathan India, who goes right after Willie Castro. India going to Kansas City. I know ballpark, but St. Louis wasn't a great ballpark. But what I love with Kansas City, another young team, very good offense. I almost think it's actually, I think it is an offensive improvement over St. Louis. If you look at that offense right now, Jonathan India is going to lead off pretty much every day. He's either going to play second base or DH when someone needs a break in that regard. Phenomenal OBP skills, hits for a decent average, does have pop, 15 to 20 home runs, runs a little. I think you got a guy late here in a category we don't talk about enough that's going to, if he plays 140 plus games, he's scoring 100 plus runs. Like, that's something we don't talk about as a category as much. He's projected for 15 homers, 13 steals, which is great. But if you can put in that 100 plus runs scored, because he's got Bobby Witt behind him, Salvi, Vinny P, go down the line there. I like Jonathan India at this price tag, a guy that not too many years ago was going probably 100 picks earlier. And he's like, the fall off was more, I think, the red situation than Jonathan India to me.
Agreed. OBP legend too.
The OBP legend. All right. Who's your fade in the top 10?
Matt McLain. Matt McLain. MIA McLain, I should probably call him, because we have not seen really Matt McLain. I guess we saw him in the fall league when we went out to First Pitch Arizona, but has not really played in the majors since August 2023. Labrum surgery, stress reaction in his ribs after that, oblique injury. I don't trust the volume for Matt McLain. I need to see him make it through a full season healthy before I can take a pick at 106. And it's just interesting, the dichotomy between Matt McLain and Marcus Semien, basically at the same price. I'm taking Semien on the bounce back, 99 times out of 100 over Matt McLain. So McLain's my fade. I think he's just too pricey, and there's too much injury risk at that point in the draft.
Yeah, no, McLain, I'm with you as well. I was kind of really excited about him, an early draft season for us that have issues in drafting starting in like October, sorry.
August.
The more we do these things and the more, research for the upcoming season, McLain's a tough click at that point. Like, I could he outplay it? Sure, but there's a lot of questions there. For me in this range, it's Bryce Terang. I love the player. I loved him when he was going about 150 to 200 picks later last year. It's more the price point for Bryce Terang. You're paying for a rabbit essentially. And if anybody's listened to any of our work, pretty much the anti-rabbit, at least in the early rounds. Terrain's not bringing you an elite batting average to go with it, which would have been a plus. He's not like Luis Ariz in that factor. He's going to run a ton, but there could be a massive drop off. There's not a ton of power. I'll just pass on him at that point. I can get 25 to 30 steals, 40 picks later,
Right.
and like my power and average a lot better at the same time. So I'm just going to pass on Bryce Terrain.
And I would take the under on Bryce Terrain steamer projection we're showing on the screen here, which is 254 batting average and 10 home runs. I don't even know if he gets either of those. So yeah, take your Andres Gimenez, Luis Rengifo, Bryson Stott. That won't kill you in batting average and homers, and get that later. So agreed.
All right, let's head to the shortstop position where it is loaded green. Overall, but especially early on. So
yes.
This is why we emphasize certain things.
Exactly. And this is why we'll talk about this with outfield at some point too, but this is why we talked about maybe we want to wait at first base and at second base, because we want to prioritize getting like an elite shortstop. Look at all that green at the top of this. Really, the top 10 is awesome to look at. Your guy Willy Adames showing some red. I don't know. We'll talk about him, but I think this is where
we're doing this right now.
I gotta get some giant stabs in there as I can. I always try to. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not.
Yes, because the whopping offense of the Seattle Mariners, everybody.
Yeah, okay. Right. Hey, Jorge Polanco, we got him.
Donovan Solano, Jorge Polanco, platoon at third base, coming to a town near you.
We got him. I just think at shortstop, the elite tier is so good. There are 5 shortstops going in the first round of 15-team drafts. I like Trey Turner, CJ Abrams, O'Neal Cruz. I like all those guys. I think this is where I want to not only get a premier shortstop, but also, and Bubba, you alluded to this back at second base, shortstop is good enough to where this is where you want to get middle infield. And I think you can do that around we'll say 160. If we look at the right side of this screen here, I think there's a cliff, and we always want to find those cliffs at each position. The Dansby Swanson cliff, we'll call it, at 165. After Swanson, there's a big ADP drop. There's only 2 other guys going in the top 230 after that, and it's Cedric Rafaela and Zach Neto, who we don't even know has an attached shoulder at this point. So I think you want to get a premier shortstop and get your second middle infielder by pick 165. And if it's Dansby Swanson, that's awesome. If it's Mason Wynn, we'll talk about it.
Outstanding is what that is.
That's up for debate. You
guys are gonna want to clip this segment for when we, PitchCon 2026. That's all I'm gonna say. Yes, but this position, I am definitely leaving with 2 shortstops. Sometimes I've been super aggressive, and I'm leaving with 2 in the top, 4 rounds, depending on how things fluctuate. Some might think that's too much, but look at the board. You're getting 5 categories. Like, these are great guys. It's the old adage. Yes, people focus on filling their positions. In reality, you just need to focus on filling your statistical categories in a roto league. Doesn't matter how you do it. And so if it means taking 2 shortstops early and you quote unquote lock up your middle infield, so be it. Like, you just locked up 5 category studs across the board, which is pretty great if you don't like where things go later on. That's kind of the point of the conversation, is don't be opposed to being aggressive at the position, because just like if you get Bobby Witt at the top, that doesn't mean you can't take, CJ Abrams, O'Neal Cruz, like, right away. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I do agree with Ryan. We do like that pocket. At least I do, because, I have an open mind to this situation. I like Mason Wynn, Jeremy Pena, and Dansby Swanson. Ryan's got a thing. He's closer to the ARP crowd of enjoying fans than the other side. Young players just don't work for him. But which is ironic based on our ages. But yes, it's definitely a top-heavy position that I am very, very aggressive in come draft day. This in the outfield, I get very, very aggressive with these top-end players. All right, who's one of your top players 1 through 15?
So I'll stick with my AARP, supporting the olds theme here. I guess I don't know if Mookie Betts is there yet or not, but
it feels like, because he's always walking with a crutch or a cane, it feels like.
Really? Okay.
Or a cast.
Walking with a cane to the tune of 600 plus plate appearances in 2 of the last 3 seasons. I get it. 500 last year with a fluke injury, broken hand. So I get it. Mookie Betts, I think, and it's weird to like call a first rounder your target. I think Mookie Betts is good enough to where if you have like a KDS setup where you can try and pick your first round pick, like, I'm fine drafting near the end or at the end wheel of a 12-teamer or
Mhm.
towards the end of a 15-teamer because you get such a good player coming back to you in the second round. Where Mookie Betts, I don't see much of a difference between like him and Gunnar Henderson. Like straight up, I would take Henderson over Mookie Betts. But Henderson's going to probably cost you a top 5 pick where you can maybe get bets outside the top 10. I just think the balance, the volume, the lineup, he's going to score like 230 runs this year for the Dodgers, shortstop and outfield eligibility. So you get that flexibility from a position standpoint and you get the flexibility from a category standpoint. Mookie Betts is very well balanced. I actually think he will steal more than the 15 bases projected by Steamers. So for all those reasons, I love to, and I am building a good amount of my teams around a Mookie Betts first round pick.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's why I like drafting with you. So that works out well. I'm just not on the Betts train. Never been on the Betts train. He's been very, very good, and that's awesome. But I'll take a guy like Francisco Lindor, Frenchy Lindor. We have a beer bet already.
We do.
It's something we
Yes.
do. We always pay up at First Pitch Arizona. It's a great time, and I have Lindor over Mookie Betts, just flat out. Just we're using player rater. We're going Lindor 33-29 last year, so let's just call it 30-30 for posterity's sake. That's back-to-back 30-30 seasons, back-to-back seasons of over 100 runs scored, nearly 90-plus RBIs in both seasons. We got a guy hitting 254, 273 last year at 270 in 2022. I love everything about Lindor, especially his age is nice as well. We saw the last 2 years, the barrel rate has gone up to 10.4 and 13.4% when we're talking Lindor's first 2 seasons, over 10%. Maybe there's something in the water in Queens. A 47% hard hit rate last year, a career high. If you're an X-Stat believer, he technically underachieved last year, which is outstanding to hear with Francisco Lindor. I think the only reason Lindor goes where he goes in drafts at the 1-2 turn in 15s is because there is so much good outfield to take early on that you want to take them. But there's no reason Lindor shouldn't be in that conversation. Like, I'm even willing to go to bat that I'll take Lindor over Gunnar Henderson, but that's a whole other debate for another day. I love Francisco Lindor. I think, back to back, he's basically the J Ram at shortstop, where you can almost pencil in his stat line. And to someone that doesn't like to take a lot of risk, especially early, love everything about that.
So
And
anyone,
Ryan's smirking. So here we go.
I mean, just an elite. You really want to target batting average early in drafts, and Francisco Lindor is just super elite, 257 projected batting averages.
Yeah, because we all live on a spreadsheet. Because last year you had 273 and you had 270 in 2022 or 2023. So yes, let's just take that one number out of the last 3 years that didn't produce. Okay, gotcha. Fair. Cool.
Let us know in the comments. Like I said, Bubba and I have a friendly wager on Mookie Betts versus Francisco Lindor in 5x5 leagues. Let us know what you think. On the right side of the screen here, I'm going to go back to that Dansby Swanson well. Again, old, boring, my kind of oatmeal. Dansby Swanson right before that cliff where I think the shortstop production just basically dies after Dansby Swanson. Dansby Swanson had core surgery like the day after the season. So you're buying somebody coming off of a down year that he was obviously playing injured through. So I'd like that aspect of the bounce back card. And Dansby Swanson's young enough to be able to do it. He plays every single day. I like Dansby Swanson.
All right, Ryan, you can go take a coffee break for a minute because we're going to do this dance yet again.
Come on. Mason
Wynn. I got it. Like, this is the brand, Ryan. This is the Bubba and the Bloom. If I didn't say Mason Wynn right here, we might lose everybody. Like, it's like, well, what are we doing?
I mean, you might lose me. You lost me by picking him.
That's fair. You should have picked him in your draft recently, according to all the people following the chat. Mason Wynn, this is a young player who will be 22 years old this year, a top prospect for the St. Louis Cardinals, a player who went 15-11 in his debut season as he got his feet wet at the big league level, hit 267. Take all of that. We saw a guy that recently in 2022 had 43 steals and 12 home runs. In 2023, we saw 18 homers and 17 steals while hitting 288 at the AAA level. There is power in this bat. There is a ton of speed with Mason Wynn, and he's called getting used to the big league level as he hit 10 of his 15 home runs in the second half of the season, which was great to see. Yes, you're going to point to a 3.7% barrel rate. I will beat you to that one right before you get there, but it has improved over the last 2 years. And this is how you speculate on later rounds at middle infield is taking a guy like Mason Wynn, who I think someday, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, this is a 2020 player. And more importantly, Mason Wynn says he wants to run work. That's all grain of salt. Players lie a lot. But he's going to lead off for the St. Louis Cardinals. And leading off for the St. Louis Cardinals could be another 100-run producer this late in the draft. He will want to make a beer bet on PitchCon. I mean, he will score more runs than Dansby Swanson this year. I'll take that right now. But that's probably not the bet you want to make. So I'll take Mason Wynn all day. This is a guy we'll be talking about as a top 150 to top 100 pick here in the coming seasons.
Just not really Mason Wynn related, but your some of us live in a spreadsheet comment, a real hit with the crowd here in PitchCon, by the way.
Real people don't know us, but
real good.
I'm the caveman. Ryan is the
know your audience. All right, early fade early fade for me is Corey Seager. I think at shortstop you want to get your steals here, as we saw at like catcher first base. You just can't get that much speed. Corey Seager does not give you speed at a position that I think you need it, and Corey Seager kind of like gets hurt all the time. So he's a great hitter. Not gonna deny that. When he's healthy, he's awesome. But I want to get speed at shortstop, and Corey Seager does not provide that at a 54 overall pick.
Yeah, I'm just going to cheat here. I'm going to take Corey Seager as well because I don't mind pretty much anybody else in the range. All aboard that train. Let's head to third base and get you the hot corner, Ryan.
All right, third base, tons of power here. Like I would argue even more than first base. Look at that home run column. All these guys projected for 30-plus home runs. J-Ram, Austin Riley, Rafael Devers, Manny Machado, Mark Vientos will round up for Jake Berger. Even Matt Chapman a little bit later on. Isaac Paredes later on. There is power at third base. It's weird with stolen bases at third base. It's feast or famine. A lot of these guys produce nothing. So a lot of the stolen base projections are below 5. But you do have Jose Ramirez, Jazz Chisholm, Luis Rengifo, Michael Garcia, Willie Castro, and super deep Jose Caballero. Not a recommendation, but you can get like an elite stolen base guy if you pick your spot at third base, which is a little bit different than what we've seen in previous years. For me, I am waiting at third base. I'm almost kind of like punting this position because we'll talk about outfield next. We want to get that and pitchers and that sort of thing. If I can't get like a Manny Machado at 37, or Jose Ramirez, I think is a top 5 pick. But outside of that, I'm pretty much waiting at third base as long as I can.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you. It's J-Ram, Machado, or I will talk about my next player when we talk about our targets on this side because he has become a major target of mine recently. But yeah, it's J-Ram or Machado, or it's pretty much waiting to round 100 or later at this position, which again, more shortstops, more outfielders, enjoy early on, fill it up. I'm not targeting stolen bases at this position. That's not my bag. So if you really need them, that's where J-Ram comes in. Otherwise, not pushing the envelope there for sure. Who are you targeting 1 through 15?
So I will say Machado. I just think an interesting debate going around this draft season is that Riley versus Devers versus Machado. It's pretty fascinating. They're all at the same price with all. I mean, look at the projections at Steamers. Yeah, pretty much identical. So you can kind of pick that argument apart. But I've just been finding myself going Machado over Riley and Devers in the top 30. So I'll take Manny Machado.
All right, my guy that I've been drafting a lot of places. I'm not alone. People love him. And I was doing it before he just put on the bat flip, heard around the world a couple nights ago. The apex height, if you're a golf fan, was through the roof on that bat flip. And that's Junior Caminero. This is a dude I am in love with. It's a ceiling play for me. And again, if you listen to our shows, I don't take a lot of young guys that haven't proven it yet, but I am all aboard this train when it comes to Junior Caminero, a guy that has nothing left to prove. He should have been up earlier last year. Rays played their game, whatever. It's his job. He's going to be 21 this year. He's a year older than what we saw Jackson Churriel do last year, which is crazy to think about. But one of the other things besides just being a believer in him, if we are spreadsheet believers in this show and we want to follow the projections and the bloom boards, did I say that right? Did I do that right? Just checking.
Yeah, you did that right.
Junior Caminero's projection is identical almost to the Riley Devers Machado conversation we just had. And right now he's going about 60 picks later. And I like to look for those kind of pockets of changes to take discounts on potentially. So Yeah, Caminero, big target of mine. He's one of the players when listeners will ask, like, hey, what players do you think will be top 50, first round pick stuff? Caminero's got the potential to be a first or second round pick next year pretty easily, I think. So, yeah, give me Junior Caminero on this side of the board.
All right side. So, like I said, I want to wait at third base in most of my drafts. I'm going to go Connor Norby at 265. I think Connor Norby, yes, there are strikeout issues, but what I really like about Connor Norby is there's power speed there, but ultimately, I think he not only plays every day in Miami. Why wouldn't they? But I think he hits near the top of that lineup and gets a ton of plate appearances, and that is huge at a 265 ADP. Connor Norby, this will be just his second season in the majors coming up, so why can't he improve that plate approach, improve some of those holes in his swing that we saw in his rookie season? So Connor Norby, I think, is somebody from a ceiling standpoint, which is what I'm looking at later in drafts, and from a playing time safety standpoint in Miami, I think is a good blend of those two things and going super cheap.
Yep, don't mind that at all. For me, if you just want a really, really deep pick to take a chance on a bounce back and can cut him if things don't work out, I'm starting to become more inclined to like a Christopher Morel at 276.
Oh,
You
okay.
thought I was gonna say Joey Ortiz, who I love.
No, yeah, that's
I love,
curveball here.
yeah, I love Joey Ortiz, but I mentioned when we did the third base show, I wanted to talk a little more Christopher Morel. So if you want my Ortiz takes, go give it a listen. Otherwise, Christopher Morel, I'm interested in. Yes, he's going to crush you in batting average more often than not. Fair. He's also going 270 or later, so you're not expecting the moon there, where Joey Ortiz would hit for average. Christopher Morel, though, this is a big time power bat. As you mentioned, a lot of power early on the board. It does start to peter out on the right side. So, like I like Morel, they're going to be out of Tampa because of they're going to be out of the normal stadium because of the hurricane, going to minor league ballpark. So the whole batter eye conundrum there should be fixed. A lot of road games. Morel only had one home run once he got moved to the Trop. That's not a plus. So I think there's a bounce back potential where you get back to that 25 plus home run, Christopher Morel. And if he could somehow put together like a 220, 230 average, which may be asking a lot, I get it, but projections have him for 229. He might add you close to 10 steals based on the projections. Not a bad gamble later on for a guy that could bounce back, still super young and should still play every day for Tampa Bay.
I like it. I didn't think you'd go there, but
I love
get it.
Joey Ortiz, but I wanted to mix it up there for a second.
Yeah.
All right. Who's a fade in the top 10?
I'll go Mark Vientos at ADP 92. I think he's just that like kind of typical. And maybe this is my argument with Connor Norby. This is Mark Vientos' second year. Maybe he improves. I just think he's that kind of prototypical, like meh batting average with good power that you can get at 150, 160 at a lot of spots. So I just think you're paying quite a bit of a tag on Mark Vientos. I'd agree with you. I would take Junior Caminero over Mark Vientos and not really think too much about it. I think they're going around the same price. I think Jake Berger is a little bit more attractive. Again, very similar projection going later and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll go Mark Vientos. I think he's overpriced.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of the cop-out answer, but it's Jazz Chisholm. Love Jazz Chisholm.
Okay.
Jazz Chisholm has the skill sets to be a first-rounder every single season. We've all said that. It's just play games. Did it last year. We saw the power speed was amazing. Yankee Stadium should be great for him. I'm not paying that premium for if you want to make fun of my batting average with Lindor, well, Jazz, come on down. And then just the power speed combo with the health, I'm just going to pass on that at that point in the draft. I want more stability in round 2. Let's head to the outfield, 1 through 30. We're only going to give you outfield 1 through 30. We don't have all nights here at PitchCon. Remember, go to pitcherlist.com/PitchCon to donate and help benefit ALS1. 100% of the proceeds go to ALS1 from PitchCon. Getting it way over 10 grand this year, folks. It was awesome last year. Let's beat that number. And we threw in a free year of our Patreon to help support the cause. Outfield, Ryan, what are we seeing on this board? And again, folks, the colors represent outfields 1 through 90. So just keep that in mind why it's so green.
Yeah, and so we did 3 separate outfield episodes kind of in 30 player chunks on our show the last couple of weeks to kind of deeper dive into all this. This is beautiful. Look at all this green. This is beautiful. This is why you want to get outfield early, and I think get outfield early and often, because while this all looks green, look at that ADP column.
Yep.
There are 15 outfielders going in the first 45 picks. Like O'Neal Cruz is the 45th overall player off the board, but he's the 15th outfielder. I know he's shortstop eligible too, but there's a lot of outfield, but you need to fill a lot of spots. Nothing groundbreaking here, but they're going early and often. I think you need to get on that train, because even though we won't show the board, I'll just show it real quick. When you get to 60 through 90, outfield completely dies. I think you want to try and get, if you're in a 5 outfielder league, I think you have to get 4 outfielders in the top 60, because you are just you are living in Platoonville, as we call it, without much ceiling late in the outfield draft. So that's my biggest thing with outfield is trying to get 4 in those top 60, and then just kind of stream or mismatch your way with that 5th outfielder, because it is so plentiful at the top, but there are so many going early in drafts that you need to if you need to prioritize outfield if you want to get some of these guys. There's just so many going in the top 50 that it's just wild, and they all should be going in the top 50. It's a loaded group.
Yeah, it's why when we kept talking shortstops, outfielders early, wait on second base, maybe wait on first base. You want to have this because, again, we're not going to go through all the charts here, but after basically the top 60 outfielders, we kind of came to the consensus you want at least 4 of your starting 5, at least.
Yep.
Like, if you can somehow pull it off where you got the 5, great. You can live with getting your 5th later, especially in 12 teams and shallower formats. You can play that game. But, like, it may seem crazy that literally it's top 100 is 24 of these people or something like that, 23 of these people. So you need to be aggressive, even though it sounds crazy at the position. So, Ryan, who is one of your top targets? You can't really go wrong on the left side of the board.
No, can't really go wrong.
That's either Chaz Chisholm, I guess.
Yeah, I'll go Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
Again, first rounder, but like I think Corbin Carroll could be a top 5 pick, and he's going at 10. So again, if you're setting that where you want to pick in the first round, I think this is why I like kind of that mid-late first round pick this season, because you can get a Corbin Carroll, a Mookie Betts, what have you, and then coming back in the second round, get a pretty juicy player in the second round. So I'll go Corbin Carroll from just an overall where I want to pick in the first round type of approach with it.
Yep, Tucker and Carroll, my 2 most rostered first round picks. So I'm with you there. We had a fun conversation in the Discord about that this morning, actually, about that first round outfield type discussion. For me, since you guys know I love Tucker so much, I'm going to go Jackson Chourio, a guy I've been pounding the drum on since we did like positional recaps back in October at the position. At the age of 20, we saw him hit 21 home runs, steal 22 bags, and hit 275. All of that is great. The 275 stood out to me the most because as a young player, he adjusted so well. It was kind of a slow go in the first half. There was potential platooning situations. Then he really got it going in the second half. We saw a guy hit 310 in the second half of the season with 12 of his 21 home runs and 12 of his 22 stolen bases. So that batting average, 310 for a 20-year-old ball player in the second half of the season is insane. I've been saying it all offseason. Jackson Chourio is the guy that I think is an easy first rounder next year. And he could be the next Ronald Acuna type where we're talking 40-40 with Jackson Chourio. Again, 20 years old. I know what I was doing at 20. I wasn't coming close to having the talent to go 20-20 or 30-30 in a season. So, Jackson Chourio is a guy I want on as many teams as possible. And if you can get him early second round with one of these, like a Carroll or something, my goodness, the start you're going to have is glorious.
Yep. And I'll tag on to that. I think your second outfielder, like the one I really like on the right side of the screen, is Teoscar Hernandez. I think out of any hitter going at their ADP right now, Teoscar Hernandez is probably my favorite one. I think this is a legitimate top 15 outfielder that you're getting at pick 64. Love the lineup. He's going right back to LA where he did his thing last year. Runs a little bit, so you get some balance there. And yeah, the projections love Teoscar Hernandez. I don't know why the market doesn't. I mean, I guess 64, like the market does like Teoscar, but I think he should be like a top 40 pick.
Yeah, and for me on the right side, it's Wyatt Langford. It's really weird because Chourio, Merrill, Langford, they should all be kind of grouped together, but like Langford's even going roughly 20 picks after a Jackson Merrill, and that just stands out as a gigantic miss on me. And I guess it's kind of cheating because he's the first one on this side. But again, I've been preaching this all off season. 16 homers, 19 steals last year on a horrific start. First home run was an inside the park home run for Wyatt Langford. It was a bad go. Went on the IL, came back though, second half, 11 home runs, 11 steals. Really looked much more like the guy we all hoped he would be. Now, hopefully a full season. Projections at 21 and 18 are too low for him especially in the stolen base department. This is a 25-25, maybe someday 30-30 guys. So I love targeting as many 20-20 upside guys as I can early on, because it just gives you such a great floor in your draft. So if you are going to take early shortstops, early outfield, give me like 4 of those guys being 20-20 type players. It allows so much flexibility with those bad, corner infield steals departments as the draft goes on.
Fascinating to look at this board and see Wyatt Langford right next to James Wood.
Yeah.
And with the Steamers thinks they are like the same exact person, right? Low 260s batting average, 20 homers, almost 20 steals. And the debate around those two, similar type of profile, right? Like second year guys, you're making a top 50 pick. I just think that's that can go one of many ways in 2025. Just interesting to see the same type of player, same projection, same price.
All right, real quick, who is your fade in the top 10, which is, whew, that's tricky.
I mean,
Let's just do.
yes.
I'll give you this much. Who's your fade on the top 30? Because these are all. It's a little different here.
I mean, I'll say I'll the price Fernando Tatis. It's just someone who I'm not. The volume hasn't been there for a first round pick. And then I will also say Ronald Acuna at 36. The projections love Acuna as they should. I worry about when Acuna is going to be back. If you draft him in leagues where you don't have an IL spot, you're stashing, and stashing is like a curse word for me. I know we're not supposed to curse at PitchCon, but stash is kind of that word for me. So Ronald Acuna, someone who we know is going to miss the season, or miss the beginning of the season, sorry, going at pick 36. Like that's a foundational pick. And I can't have a foundational pick as someone who's already injured.
Yeah, Acuna is the one I gave out. I think when we did this show before, I don't know what at that ADP he's going to miss at least the first month of the year. They're saying maybe he comes back earlier. I don't know. What's he do when he gets back? He already said he doesn't want to run as much. Like these are things you need when we're talking 20-20 guys. Now, if he doesn't run as much, he can still be like a 20-20 guy. But I think there's going to be some. He's going to need like next year. I'd be more interested in Ronald Acuna than this year. Let's put it that way. So yeah, he'd probably be the guy. If I have to name someone else, it's Spencer Steer. Nothing against Steer. He's been great. But you look at all these guys going here, he is a concern in the batting average department, which you are going to be punting. And they keep adding players in Cincinnati. They did this last year. It still played out. But eventually, like the Spencer Steer can play everywhere and be productive all the time thing, is that really going to continue on? Maybe I'm just bullish on him. But Steer would be the other guy for me for sure.
Yeah, I get it.
All right. As we're getting ready to wrap up here, Ryan, before Nick wheels us away, any final thoughts just kind of on the hitting side as you're mapping out? I think we said shortstop early, get some outfield early, maybe 4 out of the top 5 when you're in the top 60 outfielders. You said wait on second, maybe wait on third, but I don't want to talk all of it for you. So what are you seeing at the position?
I mean, that's again, those are our recommendations by position. Success may vary with our recommendations, but I think just the exercise of what we just did here, going and not so much diving deep into each player, take a longer look at each position by, as a whole at a macro level, and see where you want to attack at what points in the draft each position. I think just going through that exercise and mapping out where you like certain spots at each position, in my opinion, can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than deep diving every single player. I think you can kind of get lost in the forest from the trees doing that. It's valuable to do that, but I think taking that step back, looking at every position and where you want to attack and when, for me, has been a very productive exercise every year. And it helps me when you're actually in that draft room and have 60 seconds to make a pick. Going through this exercise and finding where your targets are, I think is super valuable.